Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Madras Institute of Development Studies was very carefully thought out by my wife and me, and we planned it in Paris. I left Paris in 1970, December. We registered it with the embassy, the consulate, in 1968.
Oh, you were very firm about it 2 years before.
Yes, because it was my wife really who kept on prodding me, what are you going to do? And I say, I'll go back and write books. She said, no, this won't do for you. You must have something concrete. And then we decided on this and then on the institute.
How was she spending the time in Paris? With you most of the time away?
Well, she had a lot of work to do as number two, and really Director General's wife was not really functioning. So she was really functioning and looking after all the women, staff members, wives. We were very busy she was with things. So with her help, we registered this in Madras, in Paris, with them, with the consulate. And we had all the legal assistance we needed from both the Indian Embassy and from UNESCO in doing this. And my wife then donated her house. She had a house in Adyar. Gandhinagar.
Where the Madras Institute of Development Studies is
located. And she donated that as a gift to the institute. And this is where we started. And we then got the thing cleaned up. That house had to be vacated because my old friend, Dr. Chandrasekhar,
population
man. He and his wife and children were occupying the house. Fortunately for me, he would not have left it. Mrs. Gandhi appointed him as Minister of State for Family Planning. Kamaraj really had got him elected to the Rajya Sabha from Tamil Nadu. And so he had to quit, you see, because he moved to Delhi. So I got the thing ready and the place ready, and we started with impressive seminar, which was India's manpower problems and planning as a link between education and development. And this was led by a Ford Foundation consultant, Kleinberg, who was visiting India at that time. And we were about 30 people. And at that time, we had C. Subramaniam staying in Madras, and R. Venkataraman in Madras, and academics, all the professors.
Perhaps this is the first time some serious seminar of the type in economics, the type you used to mention was happening in Bengal earlier, was initiated in Madras, perhaps.
Well, I think later on I realized what you're saying, that to say there is a certain amount of intellectual aridity. There was when I was a student, when I graduated, and I found it on my return. And I was hoping that this would be one of the things we could do to stimulate the rich intellectual potential that India had, with all the India's greatest scientists, greatest philosophers, greatest literatures, and so on. So we've got the potential, you see.
But somebody to kindle it, somebody to get the start to that.
Exactly.
Doctor, this must have been a fairly frightening prospect, because the type of institutes for applied economics that were established in Delhi and elsewhere that were flourishing at that time have been funded very massively. But individually, you have thought of founding something, and that too in the backwoods of India, as was commented. Must have been a formidable task. How did you dare do that?
Well, I think that I must then explain to you that first my wife and I sat down and we did it in Paris, but we confirmed here after meeting a group of people. The objectives of the institute were three. The first was to bring together the university community in Tamil Nadu. Because when I left in India, we had only the Madras University, the Andhra University, Osmania University, and Trident University, 5 universities for the whole of the south. And when I came back, I found that there were something like 30 universities that had been broken up into. And the problem was that they were not really in touch with each other.
No interaction.
Even the professors of economics, for instance, I found of one university, like Madras University, was not really in touch with the professor of economics of Osmania University or Andhra University and so on. So we felt the first task of the institute was to bring together the academic community in order to work on rural problems, to research and work on rural problems. And the second was to organize, as you said, a monthly seminar. To prod the intellectual life of Madras. And thirdly, we wanted to do a certain amount of publishing of the research work we were doing. So this being the case, I found that what I needed was about 5 young PhDs or top MAs who just come out of university, any of the South Indian universities. I brought them together and I found that if I paid each of them 500 rupees a month, it was enough for them. And I did not want them to stay as a permanently. My main aim was to train them in research, train them in analysis and prospecting, And then after 1 year, when I published their work, they would picked up by somebody and gone. So I had 5 or 6 of these youngsters and one deputy director whom I paid 1,000 rupees. And the source for this, I decided, would be my own pension. I decided that half of my pension, human pension, which was very large and very generous, which I couldn't spend unless I wanted to live a conspicuous, what you call conspicuous consumption. So I ran this whole institute on this money, and I said no to the government of India offering money through the ICSR or government of Tamil Nadu at that time, or UNESCO or ILO or United Nations,
Ford Foundation,
all these people said no. The reason was that I wanted to be left completely free to academically and objectively analyze our problems and then publicize it. So I made a deal with the government of Tamil Nadu, and we agreed that every year they'll give me a list of 7 or 8 projects which were not doing very well, but for which they had money, and that my institute would then study and analyze and find out why it was going wrong. And we did this every year. We used to take 5 or 6 of these projects and use these students. And after within 1 year, they would complete their study and I would publish it. Not having received money from government or anybody, I was free to publish it. Now, this was, I did this for about 8 years. Then the other things were the seminars I had, interdisciplinary seminar, methodology.
Yes, that's a major monumental work done by the institute. Research methodology was something not very widely known or familiar to the research scholars.
So may I say to you how I came to it again in a very curious way on this question of the gap in research methodology in our work, in our studies in academic life. I was asked to value, I was the external valuer for 2 PhD theses. And before I came, I was asked to do it. As soon as I came. And before the end of the year, I finished reading and we were assessing it, and I failed both. And I was very sorry to do it because I realized, as being a PhD student myself, that they must have spent at least 3 years, if not more, day and night working in this. And so I sat and looked at it as to why I had failed. And I realized that they had any idea of what research is. This brought together facts and used to write up a nice story. So I decided I'm going to train the PhD students in research methodology. And so we ran every year a research methodology workshop for 6 weeks during the summer. First year in Madras College. Second year in Andhra.
Oh, you rotated it among the universities.
And third year in Karnataka. So during that time, we also decided to request all the southern universities to introduce research methodology into the PhD program.
Looking at the very Trident criticism recently in the papers on the manipulations in such thesis writing at the highest academic world, this type of foundation must have been invaluable, particularly in the subject of social sciences. There must not have been much by way of guidance. You are a sort of what I consider a self-made man, in that sense that you spent 12 hours on the weekends, as you said, in the libraries and all, and with the exposure elsewhere, you could build yourself. But that facility is not available to most of the research scholars. And this must have been indeed one of the very satisfying and very valuable contribution of yours in guiding generations of research scholars in this. Logically, Doctor, why this is not being done on a continuing basis?
Well, I think that because I found that there was an unfortunate reliance on government, even in the academic world, even in the research world, be looking for grants from government, looking for assistance from government. Now, I think that this dependence syndrome that I developed was what I was trying to break in my own small way. And I worked like this for 8 years. Every year I used to publish about 5 or 6 books. So that in 8 years I had published about 50, 60 books. I showed you the books in my house the other day.
Collection.
Small pamphlet like a books they were.
The subjects you dealt with mostly hovered around rural issues.
Yes, all
rural
scheduled castes and unemployment and dry farming and so on, economics of dry farming, went on like this. Now, so I think that I founded this in 1971, and I think that my work, the Institute's work, was being watched by both the Government of India, the Planning Commission there, and the Indian Council of Social Science Research, and the Government of Tamil Nadu. So at the end of 7 years, the Government of India, that is the Indian Council of Social Science Research and Planning Commission, got in touch with the Government of Tamil Nadu, and they together came and met me and said, we'd now like to take over this institute and make it one of the nationals.
The Centers of Excellence in Social Science
That's
Research.
right. Their network of what you call Centers of Excellence. In every state, they had a plan to have one. And, K and Raj had one, started the Center of Development Studies in Trivandrum. V.K.R.V. Rao had the Institute of Technical Economic Change and Social Change in Bangalore. They wanted my here from Madras.
Doctor, is it something unique, Doctor? You have seen this the world over, devoting such centers of excellence on social science research.
I think you're quite right, absolutely right. No other country, even to this day, has a network of social science research institutes. They have a network of technological, engineering, and science as we have. Indian Physics Laboratory, Indian Physical Laboratory, Chemical Laboratory, Botanical, and so on. But this one is really unique.
But in that sense, have they contributed to the reversal of our concepts of planning from the top to the roots? Have they succeeded to even a significant measure in arresting this very familiar tendency of Delhi planning the various minutest details at the state levels? Have they contributed to a change in thinking at the national level in major issues?
I think that some of the institutes have really been working on this. So one was my institute, the other was K. N. Raj's Institute in Trivandrum, and then there was the institute in Bombay, Maharashtra, Pune. Who kept saying that you cannot plan from Delhi for a country like India, vast country like India, or economic development. And only way to abolish poverty, to get rid of poverty, is for not only the state, but under the states, the districts, the blocks, and the panchayats, they have to plan because they know who are the poor and how to get rid of them. So that was the contribution made by, and they kept pushing this with the Planning Commission, particularly in Delhi. Now, so after I handed over, I was made honorary chairman of the governing board for life of the Madras Institute of Development Studies, and I also became honorary fellow. That's where I work every day now. Then I say to you that certain things happened when I had founded the institute. Soon after I had founded the institute in 1971, Karunanidhi, who was in power then, was following up implementing the Rajamanar Committee report on center-state relations. And in our field, my field, economic field, he decided to establish a planning commission. Again, the only body in India called the commission at the state level. Others had planning boards, planning cells, planning units in the state. He started a planning commission, and we were about 5 or I think 6 of us, engineers, I was the economist, agronomists, and so on. And
made members of the commission.
And then he made me a member. It was on the pleading of Narendra that I accepted it. And I made clear that this should not interfere with my institute work. I'll do this on a part-time basis. And I accepted it, and Karunanidhi really wanted the Planning Commission to be what you call decentralized, to work on decentralized plans, you see. But the Secretary of Finance at that time was a very clever Venkatramanan, you see. And he made quite sure that no iota of power from his ministry, which was in charge of planning and development in government, will go to this new commission. And so he very cleverly manipulated. Poor Karunanidhi did not realize he was doing this on what he called that we would work only on perspective plan, not on the 5-year plan, not on the annual plan, and so on, a 10-year perspective plan. So we worked on that. But then, to his intense surprise and disgust, I produced a 10-year plan for education, science, and technology for Tamil Nadu. And then I also produced a health plan for 5 years and a forestry plan. Those are the 3 areas I was in charge of.
What did they do with these?
No, these were then, especially the education and science plan was implemented. In fact, the science plan recommendation led to the setting up of a science commission, which I was chairman. After Karunanidhi, the MGR followed it up, and Tamil Nadu State Council of Science and Technology it was the result of that. Therefore, I helped in the development of commission, though we didn't get into the 5-year plan, the annual plan at that time.
Why you could not force that with Karunanidhi, Dr. Adiseshiah?
Well, we did not want to, have a head-on. Then there would be a head-on clash with the administration. And Venkatraman was very powerful also in those days. And so we didn't feel that was worthwhile. My colleagues agreed with me. In fact, they did not want to. And so we went on with our work. And really, we were able to do a job which has helped the state in establishing its own priorities for planning. And this principle that you mentioned of not planning from Delhi, but planning from Madras. And one of the things that we have made sure is that we are not going to just copy Delhi's plan. But I think that after Karunanidhi, when the Planning Commission went out of existence, we again reverted to the old system of just copying Delhi.
What was the impact of the changeover of the structure of the institute when it was taken as a center for national excellence? What benefits, special benefits?
The first, it had a full-time director and full-time staff, research staff. The first director was Dr. C.T. Kurian. And it had research staff, Vaidina, then one of the top researchers,
member of the Planning Commission.
Guhan resigned from IAS and joined this because of the Poduwal. And so, first of all, high-level research staff. And the second thing is this change enabled the library, to which I have been able to give only a small amount of money because we had a very limited budget from my own resources. Now the library was getting every year 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs. In those days, that was a rather large sum and was building up. This I would say was the contribution of its becoming a national institute.
It's now funded by the center and the state government.
Yes,
right?
on a 50-50 basis.
Equally. What's the budget now like?
Well, I think the budget now is about 30 or 40, 35 lakh. Now, the second thing that happened during this planning commission, state planning commission, was for a 3-year period. It started in 1972 and finished in 1975. In 1974, Karunanidhi approached me and said, now I think you've done enough on the planning commission side, helping the country, the state and government. Now I think you should do something for Madras University. And so he asked me to whether I would accept the vice chancellorship. And he got K.K. Shah, who was the governor and chancellor, also to talk to me about it. So I thought about this and I laid down, I said, all right. My wife was completely against it because she felt, her main point was that after being Director General of UNESCO, to descend to be the vice chancellor and all, she had seen poor Latsam milling around, doing nothing, you see, and then followed by Sundaravadi Velu. Said it's not worth
like Rajaji taking a chief minister after governor generalship,
exactly.
Right? Exactly. That was her attitude.
Exactly. And so I said, all right. But I said to my wife, no, I'm sorry, this time I'm going to disagree with you. I think that the university needs my help. And you see, during that 3 years when I was developing the plan, I had studied university very carefully. I just studied primary schooling in Tamil Nadu, secondary, and university very carefully. I knew what should be done. So I told Karunanidhi and K.K. Shah, I have 3 conditions. First, I will be Vice Chancellor accepted for only 1 term.
That's 3 years.
No question of extension because I don't think that Vice Chancellor should go into 70. The second condition is that I will draw up a plan for the restructuring of the university and I must be given complete freedom in implementing it. The third is that there should be no interference in my administration of the university from anybody in your ministry, and I must say that he did, that they kept that except on one, I'll come to that, except in one case. Now, first thing I did was I sat down and wrote a 3-year plan for university, submitted to the first meeting of the syndicate, which poor boys, they're not used to that, you see.
They've never heard of planning.
They just accepted everything I proposed. And I proposed there, I think 56 innovations, you see, to be in my 3-year period, of which I think 4 could not be carried out. Important could not be carried out was I wanted to make some outstanding college, like Presidency College, a constituent college of the university, which is not affiliating college. So I talked to Narendra, who was Minister of Education, and after discussion, he completely agreed with me. We signed an agreement in which we provided for Presidency College becoming a constituent college of the university, and then university dropping matriculation examination, because I took the line, this is a high school business, what is the university doing with this? And turning it over to the Department of Education. Now, the staff of Presidency College got terribly agitated. They didn't want to become merged with the university. They lose their individuality and so on. So they started a big agitation and went to see the chief minister. But the thing that really upset this agreement was that the provision for abolishing matriculation examination from the university, turning it over to the Department of Education. I did not realize it will be there. See, Mursoli Maran, sons were studying in Don Bosco, which was a matriculation school. So the principal of Don Bosco went to see Mursoli Maran, told him, look here, Adiseshiah has done this. You better speak to the chief minister, change it. It must change. We must not allow matriculation
to pass on to the Department of Education.
And Mursali did that. And what Karunanidhi, clever man, he said, I think that it should be discussed and ratified by the cabinet. Narendra protested, saying nothing to do with the cabinet, is purely an education matter. No, bring it up. And right enough, both were stuck down. So this is one thing that I had. A second important program I had, which couldn't be carried out among the four, I'll just pick, was I had watched Madras universities doing very well, and I felt that instead of wasting our resources by duplicating each other, we should combine certain departments, certain syllabi, curricula, and Madurai to specialize in certain things in Madras. Now, Chittibabu, who was then Vice Chancellor, agreed with me, but neither his syndicate
nor Madras.
And Madras syndicate will do whatever they say. So that had to be dropped. Now, if you ask me what was my main, and this was then printed, a small thing, about 12 pages, I think, plan. And somebody had sent this copy of this to Mrs. Gandhi. And I think it was 4 months after I became Vice Chancellor, there was a meeting of Vice Chancellors, all India Vice Chancellors, called by the University Grants Commission.
In Delhi.
And Mrs. Gandhi was to inaugurate. And she then referred to, said, look here, I have read Adiseshiah's 3-year plan. Why don't each of you Vice Chancellors have a plan like this? Madras had to print again, now to send it to the Vice Chancellor.
But universities in general did not have such a conceptual or a specific plan for the tenure. No.
I think that I was one of the few Vice Chancellor economists to become Vice Chancellor, and so I knew what planning is. I knew what planning could do. I knew what damage it could do also, and so I was very aware of this. Now, if you ask me what are the highlights of my 3-year in the plan, I would say first autonomous colleges. It had been proposed by the Kothari Commission and was not followed up at all. It was proposed. Bodhila just put this aside. There's a huge file on autonomous colleges. We do not need this. It was what the Bodhila would write in every case. One is autonomous college. The other was introducing the semester system. First the postgraduate level, then also undergraduate level, internal evaluation. I gave internal evaluation at the postgraduate level 60 or 70%. Undergraduate level has started more modestly, about 30 to 40% internal evaluation, and then change the syllabus. And, from this to having small things like, I found that the School of Social Work, which is doing excellent work, training and researching in social work, was not recognized. I think very largely because in the syndicate, G.R. Damodaran was a very powerful personality, and he had in Coimbatore a PhD College of Arts, Social Science, Social Work Department, and he didn't want any competition to it. So one of the points I made in my plan was that Madras University will recognize. So like this, and so out of the 56 I found at the end of my 3-year term, and I gave the syndicate an assessment of 51 we had accomplished, and 5 we said I could not do. We were not ready for it.
Doctor, this decision to permit the establishment of autonomous colleges with the power for them to determine the syllabus, to conduct the examinations on their own, and to award degrees meant naturally a certain giving cessation of powers. I could well understand Dr. Mudaliar why he didn't think of that, because it was a time
when
he opposed it to the nail. And of course, in your case, in fact, want to crave for this model to be followed by politicians. If only they come with a specific time limit for their power, perhaps they can afford to take many more such harsh decisions.
Thank you very much. You're quite right. You see, I had also watched Nehru. He died. He had a paralytic stroke but didn't give up his prime ministership. He died as prime minister. I also watched Mrs. Gandhi. She was, this is before I became vice chancellor, but Mrs. Gandhi also wouldn't give up. I saw we have this tradition in India, nobody wants to give up power. So I knew that I could never do anything definitive and sharp unless I had a time limit to my...
It's fantastic, Doctor. Only I crave and yearn that such a self-discipline can't be imposed from outside, because our politicians or academicians or any cross-section of society, they don't believe in retirement gracefully on their own. They never have done it. And that causes much of the ills. They are not able to take hard decisions as somebody dealing in economic planning and things like that. You must be time and again disappointed. Why very necessary decisions are not taken by politicians? Because they are not populist. If only M.G. Ramachandran, for instance, set a time limit of 1 term for his chief ministership, he could have had greater freedom, as P.G. Wodos would say, if had it been. We leave it at that. Doctor, in this Vice Chancellorship, this is a most momentous contribution. The autonomy aspect, I have been looking at it. By once a teacher myself, I admired that enormously. But the main fear of giving that was the abuse to which such a system could be subjected to. Weren't you worried about that?
Well, I think that you're quite right. All innovations are faced with this kind of defects, that it can be abused. And I was prepared to take a risk. And the risk I took was the defense I had against this abuse you talk. First of all, I chose the first group of 8 colleges we chose were top colleges with very high moral standards of integrity and so on. But then as we began spreading it, we would have to build in various defenses against abuses. This can be done, but the risk can be taken, and there's no alternative to, in my opinion, no alternative to autonomous college, because we are the only country. We, Pakistan and Bangladesh, are the only 3 countries who have the system of affiliating universities. Oh. And Lord Ripon wrote in his minute that I'm leaving India in Calcutta University, Bombay, Madras University, with a system of affiliating colleges. But this is terrible. I do not know what the future is. And the future was really no knowledge at all was developing, spreading. So you're quite right in saying that this autonomous colleges, for me, were incipient universities. Each one of them was as good as a university in the United States and even the United Kingdom, you see. So, now, the other thing that happened during my Vice Chancellorship, as I ended my Vice Chancellor, very curious, I was ending my Vice Chancellorship in July 31, 1978.
70, right.
I began 1975, 1978. In April, you see, Janata Party had come to power. Morarji Desai was Prime Minister. Morarji and I knew each other. I used to come and help him when he was in Gujarat Vidyapith and so on his work in science and education. And so I got a call from him, from his office first, and then from him, saying that I'd like to nominate you as member of the Rajya Sabha. So this was, and I had 3 months to go, 4 months to go to Vice Chancellor. So I said to him, let him think about this. And I said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. The next day, before I called him, his office called me, say, the Prime Minister wants your reply. So I said to him, well, I have, first of all, I must tell you that I have 4 more months of Vice Chancellorship. That will be taken care of. Don't worry about it. And then he said that I will spend only the minimum time in Delhi because my work is here really in Madras in the south. I said, okay, if you spend some time in Rajya Sabha, we want your contribution. So that's how it started. And my wife was very much in favor of my taking up this.
So this was in contrast. And the Vice Chancellorship, she had reservations.
This one she had she was very glad about it. And I think that my accepting this led to many things. First, I would say that I decided not to have a house in Delhi. First, because I didn't want to stay in Delhi on any long-term basis. And secondly, I did not want to have 2 establishments, one in Madras, one in Delhi. So I stayed in parliamentary hostel in what's called Western Court. Stayed there for the few weeks when Parliament was meeting. And now, secondly, I must say to you that I decided after watching Parliament for a month, my first month Parliament, that I will concentrate only on economic matters. First of all, because I do not know anything about others, about political matters and about scientific matters. Concentrate on economic matters. And that was, the Parliament's work was divided between, I would say, about 90% or 85% is political affairs, political matters, all. And about 10 to 15% was on economic matters. And for me, the great moments were in my parliamentary life every year was my comment on the budget, my suggestions on the budget, suggestions on the annual plan, on the 5-year plan when it came up, and the economic survey. I noticed then that the finance minister, who then was the present deputy chairman of the planning commission, he was used to listen to very carefully, and then after I'd spoken at the break, he'll call me and ask me to explain this, why did I say this, what should I do, and so on. And so gradually they developed a very close relationship between us, and he was relying on me for certain things, and neither of us made this public. You see?
Doctor, should it not have logically led to the evolution of what they call the committee systems, which are so effective in other democracies?
But that was a political decision, you see, which concerns all the members of parliament, you see, as well as the few people in the cabinet.
So otherwise, serious discussion on such weighty subjects are often missing, You see, the preponderant of the parliament's time is often wasted even on ephemeral issues of the day. And little discussion is often made, devoted to weighty issues. And sometimes, unblock ministries of demands of grants of various ministries are passed by guillotine for want of time. Somebody like you having done such wonderful work in a particular area, I thought we missed a golden opportunity in not evolving into this system.
Well, I think that you're quite right. I enjoyed my stay. I had high moments, low moments. One of my probably, I don't know if you call it low moment, was there was a bill for nationalizing textile mills.
Sikh textile mills.
Or Sikh textile mills in Bombay. And I found that the delegates' position for every party, Congress, CPM, CPI, Janata and so on, was occupied by the leader of the trade union from the INTCA to CA and so on. And they were all in favor of nationalizing, all of this. So I was the only one who got up and explained why I'm going to vote against this. And I said, I realize I will be a minority of one, but you should know that this is a wrong decision. We are putting money into an area where it will be lost, where it will not really create employment. Instead of that, if we can sell these the lands on which they are and reinvest this and create employment, we can then also start training courses to redeploy. So after that, a vote was taken. No, before the vote was taken, the minister, Sangma was the minister then. He was deputy minister, Minister of State of Finance. Then he had to reply. Later on said to me, I was away, I have to be away in Manila. That's why my deputy, Sangma, replied. He said to the parliament, what Professor Adiseshiah said makes weighty academic sense, but it also is politically complete nonsense.
Oh, really? That gave the strength to us, looking back from outside, that as an MP you had the courage to dissent even when you were alone.
Yes. I mean, I think that, the parliament system allows you to do that. There are a number of occasions when I was in a minority or alone like this.